You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market, from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody, that rockin' tune means it's time once again for the Option Block, everyone's favorite. I know it's my favorite, hopefully it's yours. Otherwise, you're tuned into the wrong program. But we welcome you even more for your second or third favorite bi-weekly source for all things options related. A little bit of options wit, wisdom, analysis, unusual activity, education, strategy, some peeks ahead into the mystical realm of the future, some earnings breakdowns, lots of your questions, some guests, mix it all together, and you got the delicious, tasty cocktail that is the Option Block. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the ever-exciting, ever-expanding Options Insider Radio Network. If you haven't seen it by now, the latest edition, number 14, to the network should be hitting your iTunes playlist or wherever you get our fine program, or should be there already, actually. You should actually have 2 episodes now of This Week in Futures Options, a very stealthy sneak preview edition than the inaugural episode that we recorded last week and went out live to our live listeners. If you were live in the chat room on Friday, you got to hear it. For everybody else, it's coming to you now. And this breaks down a lot of the cool stuff we do here on the Options Block, actually, excuse me, not the Option Block, the Express, I'm blanking on what the name of the show, the Odd Block, there we go, what the name of the segment is. That's what we do on the Odd Block, easy for me to remember. If you like that portion of all the unusual activity, the analysis, well, we would take that and we apply a lot of that methodology to things like crude oil and gold and corn and the ags and whatever else is firing up and lighting off that week in the world of commodities. As you might imagine, there's a lot of products to choose from over there, so it keeps us on our toes. It's a fun one. And also, we put together a pretty cool report that you guys can get by surfing over to QuickStrike, SQUIKSTRIKE.com, or surfing over to the website of CME Group. Actually, they have a portal there as well. Look for the This Week in Futures Options report that you can get for yourself. It's actually a cool PDF, and it's actually an online version as well that updates, so you can see all the cool data we're breaking down on the show for you. You can kind of follow along, charts, graphs, SKU numbers, all kinds of cool stuff that makes it really fun to join the program. Speaking of joining the program, I am joined by my usual compatriot, my partner in crime, from not across the pond, but close to it. He's about as far away as you can get without being across the pond here in the States. The Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi, from a little place we like to call OptionPit.com. How you doing, sir?
You know what? I just realized how nicely you pronounced my name in the intro. I think this is one of the first shows I'm coming in right from the get-go, and there's no umbrage at all right from the beginning. None. Zip.
That's good to hear, sir.
So I'm doing well, I guess.
And listeners, we are unfortunately unable to be joined today by Mr. Rock, not Mr. Rock Lobster, he's already on, by the Uncle Mike, because he's got more emergency dental stuff going on, which obviously is not conducive to talking on the radio. But thankfully, we have an able stand-in, so I think let's just get right to it. This is fun, Mr. Rock Lobster. I get to use a drop we haven't used in quite some time. It's going to be a break-in for a little history lesson on the old Odd Block here, or the Option Block, because it's time for actually the Express Block.
The Express Block. Brought to you by OptionsXpress by Charles Schwab. OptionsXpress by Charles Schwab lets you trade where and when you want for every level of trading. From advanced charting, free daily trading ideas, and free educational resources. OptionsXpress by Charles Schwab is the online broker for all traders. Best of all, OptionsXpress by Charles Schwab lets you trade stocks, options, and futures all in a single account on powerful yet easy-use trading platforms, including mobile devices. Visit OptionsXpress.com for your free account. OptionsXpress by Charles Schwab is a member of FINRA, SIPC, and NFA.
All right, listeners, if you're saying, wait, what was that? That's because we haven't used that in a while, but it's fun to actually get a chance to use that drop again. Haven't had a chance to play it since our beloved Viceroy changed his hats over there, but we got it again. And why am I playing that drop? Because we are joined now by Barry Metzger. He is the CEO over there at OptionsXpress, as well as a senior VP over there at all things Charles Schwab. Barry, welcome to the Option Block program, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
We got a little bit of a behind-the-scenes run around to get you on, but I'm glad we finally got you on. Barry, this is usually where we would have our interview segment, but I thought it was appropriate for us to kick things off, actually, with the return of the Express Block. But since you haven't been on this program, and you haven't been on our network in quite some time either, let's start there. Why don't you give our listeners maybe a little bit of your background in the options and derivatives space and how you found your way to becoming the CEO over there of OptionsXpress?
Sure, happy to. I started out my career at Morgan Stanley as a financial advisor and had a book of business, and then moved into management, and then I bumped into the founders of OptionsXpress, David Call, Matt Bennett, and Jim Gray, and they wanted me to come over and run a division called Brokers Express. So I met with the former CEO of OptionsXpress, David Call, as well as David Fisher, and Brokers Express was an online broker-dealer for reps and advisors, so not necessarily a self-directed model for retail investors, but more of a great online platform if you were a registered rep or registered investment advisor. And we built up Brokers Express, and our big message to the market we were going after is if you were a broker and you traded options, Brokers Express was the place for you to trade. And we built out our business and really got to a great size. And then, as many of you know, Charles Schwab bought OptionsXpress in 2011. And with the purchase of OptionsXpress, they also bought Brokers Express. And so that's how I came here. And eventually, the Brokers Express business was wound down, and we also moved many of our brokers to other platforms. And after that, I took a role in OptionsXpress as the chief operating officer for OptionsXpress for a few years, and eventually moved into my current role as CEO.
Oh, but yeah, like I said, I'm happy to get you back on because this gives us a chance to kind of bring back a segment we haven't talked about and haven't had on the show in quite a while, which is indeed our Express Block. And what we used to do on this segment quite a bit was pretty much take a deep dive into all the cool new things that were going on over there in the realm of OptionsXpress. Maybe some big platform developments, maybe some upgrades, some overhauls to the UI. I know you guys are always doing feature improvements and updates there, so talking about some overhauls, some new tech, maybe some of the things the clients are up to. So I thought it'd be a good way to kick off your appearance on the show here today. Let's start there. Maybe catch our listeners up to speed on some of the interesting new developments, maybe some interesting new upgrades you guys have made over there on OX and the platform since the last time we caught up with you guys.
Well, what's really interesting is, there's a lot of platforms out there, and all platforms are great. But what I love about our platform at OptionsXpress is just the ease of being able to trade. And I keep hearing that time and time from our clients, the ease of being able to navigate through the platform, the ease of trades. We had a phrase that was coined a long time ago, the 3 E's, education, evaluation, execution. And we still ring true to that to this very day, trying to be world-class in all 3 areas. So, what we're constantly trying to do at OptionsXpress is just make it easier for whether you're new to trading or you're experienced to trading to navigate the site, really easy to understand where your positions are. And we've made some great enhancements in a lot of the tools for evaluating opportunities. A big thing today that you keep hearing about is idea generation, timely idea generation. And certainly OptionsXpress, as well as Schwab, is committed to that and trying to make that much clearer for our clients. So, tools like Idea Hub, where you can get ideas that are both timely, whether you're doing premium harvesting or whether you're tying it to earnings or whatever it may be, is an area that we're seeing a lot of increased use. A lot of our clients, they're always looking for new ideas, and the Idea Hub is a great way to maximize those opportunities and look for new opportunities. And so we're seeing some great traction at both OptionsXpress and Schwab with Idea Hub. And now Idea Hub is on our mobile devices as well. And, from our perspective, that's certainly where the puck is headed in mobile, and seeing a lot more, adoption in mobile. And that's a very important area for us. So we're looking to make sure that the experience that our clients were able to enjoy on the web, they can also enjoy it on their mobile devices. And Idea Hub is another great example of that, having that consistent experience, ease of use experience across both web and mobile. And we've seen great adoption of walk limits. So walk limit is, a new order type where basically you could put a limit order on automatic pilot. You don't have to sit there and reset the limit order. You can just set it, and the order moves with the market. And this is actually one of those tools that both, active traders love to use, as well as new traders. That's sometimes hard to do, to get a tool out there that appeals to both sets of groups. But if you're new to trading, this is a nice, convenient tool. And then if you trade a lot, this saves you a lot of clicking and mouse time in terms of putting in your limit orders. So, those are some of the areas that we're focusing on: ease of use, idea generation, easy navigation, great consistent experience across web and mobile, all very important for both the OptionsXpress platform as well as the Schwab platform.
Our listeners are certainly very familiar with the Idea Hub. That was indeed our old friend, the Viceroy's baby, when he was over there. He talked about it quite a bit on the show. Also talked about walk limit quite a bit, so they should be familiar with both of those. I'm curious, the last time we checked in on the Idea Hub on the program, you had some key areas that were pretty popular, the premium harvesting being one of the more popular elements of that section. I'm curious, have you expanded on the offerings in the Idea Hub recently? Have you added any more sections or any new idea generation formats? Because you're right, idea generation is indeed where a lot of the brokers are trying to go. You guys kind of got off to a start and leading the race there with that Idea Hub and kind of actively doing a lot of the idea generation for your clients. So it's certainly been a big winner for you guys. So I'm curious if you've added a lot of other segments or elements that our listeners may find interesting since the last time we checked in on it here on the program.
Yeah, so just to cover it off, really 5 tranches or 5 areas is what's trending big movers, and there's typically over 300 ideas in that particular section, and those are using really predefined screeners to look for different ideas based on certain different indicators, whether it's volatility or stock volume or open interest. What's trending in terms of earnings? You typically have over 50 ideas in that tranche. Premium harvesting is probably, from my vantage, and I would need to go back and check some of the data, seems to be the most widely used, and that's very important and one of those areas that gets a lot of adoption. Cover calls is another tranche, and then futures options as well. And so those are really the 5 areas. We have some other things in the think tank, if you will, in terms of expanding Idea Hub, and again, this is really trying to make it easy for our clients to go from, looking for that opportunity or that idea and one click into a trade. And that's what I think is really the sensational thing about Idea Hub. It's so easy to go from an idea, populate the trade with one click, and execute. And that's consistent with the type of experience that we try to build at OptionsXpress.
Well, futures options, that's certainly tickles my fancy here. We obviously just added a new futures options program this week in futures options to the network. Every Friday we do that show, so that's pretty fun. So futures options, certainly a big area of interest for us. And of course, the reason we added that is because so many of our listeners, so much of our audience is into crude, metals, gold, ags, whatever product you want to pick these days. Futures options are definitely a hot thing. So I'm curious. We didn't really get a chance the last time we talked about Idea Hub to mention. I don't think the futures options tab was even available then. So walk our listeners through. Can they do the exact same thing they can do with the regular Idea Hub in the futures options section? Can they break it down by premium harvesting, or what do you guys offer in the Idea Hub from a futures options perspective?
Yeah, future options, I would say the easiest way to look at it is it really focuses on the major underlyings that basically our clients tend to use, whether they're E-minis or E-mini S&P 500s or Nasdaq gold, a lot of crude oil these days. It's really some of those larger traded commodities that typically come up in futures options. And I would say on a daily basis, the ideas within futures options, there's less ideas than some of the other tranches, but certainly enough to get anyone who's particularly interested in futures options ideas for them to act on. And then from there, we have a lot of people who will call into our desk or talk to Michael Zaremski, who does a daily report out on futures, or Dan O'Neill, who runs that business. And this is one of those areas that we have seen at Options Express grow. This has just been one of those great stories, not just the futures business, but in particular the futures options business. So not surprised that your listeners have more interest in the area. We're certainly seeing that as well on our side, and it's been great to see the business, whether the market has seen some of the high volatility that we saw earlier in the year, or to even the calm volatility that we see now. Futures options is getting a lot of play.
Well, speaking of getting a lot of play, that is, things are popping off after hours as we speak, listeners. There's a lot of big names trading coming in after hours as well. We typically would ask in the Xpress Block as well what some of the OX clients have been trading, but I think we can guess. So I think let's keep on rolling then with Barry, and catch up also with the Rock Lobster here, and keep on rolling into our trading block segment.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block. This is, of course, the portion of the show we break down what's moving, what's shaking, what was rocking, what was rolling in today's market activity. Barry, we got so caught up in the Express Block there, I didn't get a chance to introduce you. You're also on here with Andrew Giovinazzi, beaming in live from Maine via way of the Option Pit. He gets to join us every time on the show here to break down all kinds of fun stuff in the realm of options. So maybe let's kick things off, Andrew. What's been catching your eye in today's activity, sir?
I have to say, well, this is something I didn't expect today. Carl Icahn says he has sold all of his shares in Apple.
Yes. Surprise, surprise.
I was so positive. He was saying, 200. These things are worth 200, man. And he's saying 200 with one hand, and he's selling the crap out of his stock position with the other. He is awesome. He is unbelievably awesome. He's a great trader. That's all I can say. But most people just can't get away with saying that stuff. I love the stock, but I'm selling it. I love the stock, but I'm selling it. I love the stock, but I'm selling it.
I kind of wish Tusaw was on the show today, because he is indeed our biggest, even though not so much anymore, he is indeed our biggest Apple cheerleader. By the way, Barry, he asked me to say hi to you. He was going to be on today, but he's having actually emergency dental surgery as we speak. So obviously he'd much rather be here joining us. So he asked me to send along his best wishes to you while we dive in. But again, it was an interesting day here on the old street. Mr. Rock Lobster mentioned, of course, a bit of some shakeups in Apple. I think we'll get to that in a second. A lot to sink our teeth into there. Across most of the major indices today, it was pretty much off about a full percentage point, if not more. S&P off nearly a full percent. Dow off a little over about 1.25%. The Nasdaq also about 1.25% as well. All this red on the screen means VIX gets a little bit of green to the tune of about 1.5 handles in the VIX cash, ending the day right around 15.25 or so. We'll see how that plays out for our predictions and volatility views tomorrow. Still got one more session to go, though. And as we are talking about here, it is still the height of earnings season. A lot of things really firing off here after the bell. Amazon, big one, of course, today, closing 6:02 on the dot. You don't see that too often out there. They were pricing in close to a $50 straddle, very close to. It was about 8% that they were pricing in. That's actually a little bit less than what they've done in the last 8 or so cycles. They were averaging close to 10% as far as actual movement. So pricing in a little bit lower move out there in the old straddle. And here we have it now. Of course, it's come out since we started recording the program. They were up about almost 12% now in the after hours, about 70.5 handles, right around 672 in the after hours right now. So blowing the doors off that underpricing out there in good old in the option land, perhaps coming back to bite them a little bit. And Barry, I know you guys, obviously, this is a big time of year for you over there on the OX platform. A lot of retail, very active in these big earnings names, including Amazon coming out. Have you noticed anything interesting, any interesting trends coming off this week? Maybe some interesting trends with your clients in Amazon paper, or maybe some of the other names that were lighting it up this week. What really caught your eye on the OX platform this week?
Well, it's just an interesting time of year in general. I mean, there's a lot of money and movement in terms of just this time of year. I mean, tax time in general, it's one of those times of year where people are selling stocks and they need to liquidate funds for different tax responsibilities. But beyond that, we see the same, typical underlyings that a lot of companies see. A lot of activity around Apple, Netflix, Twitter, Tesla. And in addition, lately with Facebook, and now you're seeing after-hours information around LinkedIn as well, and seeing LinkedIn shares really rising based on the information that they release. So those are some of the typical players. But what's great too is we get to see a lot of activity in terms of the E-minis on futures as well, and that has been remaining consistent really from late last year as well. So for us, we're taking, you mentioned volatility. That's really our big one, and interest rates as well. We really want to see that to ensure that our clients are playing the market and the probabilities right. What we spend a lot of time with our clients is, it's very difficult with our clients to ensure that they have a proper long-term view of trading. It's in and out on a lot of days, not necessarily day trading, but a lot of our clients have a short-term view. We spend a lot of time with our clients ensuring that they're thinking a little further long-term, making sure that these rises and dips in the market aren't affecting them too much. So a lot of our education is around cover calls and protected puts and a little bit more conservative strategies that can help them really ride out some of these markets. So a lot of our clients will do mostly index tradings when it comes to those types of strategies. So a lot of the usual suspects with indexes, a lot of the usual suspects with the equities, as well as the futures. What I am going to be interested in seeing, though, is once we finally have cleared through this tax season and money sort of settles on their accounts, we're moving into what I think many of us feel is a historically low, volatile time of the year between now and into the summer months and a little bit beyond, is how people can utilize options more than what I would say more of your typical fixed income strategies that you see people who are maybe afraid to use options. So, I think shows like this, educations, programs like this, how do you generate premium in a low interest rate, low volatile market is something that we're going to be focused on with our clients, and we hope to see them take advantage of.
And Mr. Rocklobster, I'm sure your chat room was lighting it up today with Amazon as well as LinkedIn. You mentioned the big move out there in LinkedIn. They coming in the after hours up about 8.5% or about 10.50 in the after hours, right around 133.5 out there. So that's one of the other big names popping off out there. But what was lighting it up today in the chat room, Mr. Rocklobster?
One is the unbelievable rally. Well, not unbelievable, because how well Facebook has executed. And we had actually client trades. One of my smarter clients had a great trade. The volatility was so wacky priced going into yesterday. That's a technical term, that you could sell. you could sell the at the money straddle expiring tomorrow, and you could buy the strangle that trades against the straddle. So I guess you're selling the 108s, sell the 108 straddle for $8, and you could buy the like the 115 calls and the 90 puts or 99 puts 3-to-1. So you buy 3 strangles to 1 straddle. That way, if Facebook doesn't go anywhere, the straddle collapses and it pays for your strangle. But if you had an out of category move, you made bulk. And obviously, because we looked at Facebook either does nothing on earnings or it goes parabolic, and it was a parabolic day. So that was definitely the trade of the day for several clients. Actually, they're like, woohoo! And it's weird because we've been seeing more vol anomalies into earnings where they either really want the at the money, like in Facebook, they wanted the at the money bad, and they all started selling the wings, which creates, different type of position. So everybody's kind of reading the playbook like, we want to own Facebook. And I think most of it was really bullish. As far as a company executing, remember 3 years ago, everybody was they're dead, and they only had 10% of their revenues were from mobile. Now they're 85%. That company has, if you want a well-run company, whatever you say about Zuckerberg or anything, but he executed in a pretty amazing fashion, and his team did. You compare that with Twitter, because we're also looking at Twitter, like the junkiest stock in the world that has the coolest reach and buzz of a product, but as far as like doing cool things with Twitter and keeping up with how Facebook engages, it's not even close. So that was a lot of basically Facebook's awesome. It's probably, I think it's replacing Apple. And the next thing is my next thesis is just the queues are locked up. Every earnings straddle of the big five, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and Apple, all the earnings pops way out, either pops or drops, outperform the straddle. Like you got smoked if you sold the straddles, lost big dough. So, we always tell clients earnings is a very tough play, tough to do. You got to be smart about how you position, and sometimes volatility gives you some opportunities that not normally there. And we also say, wait till the last day. The thing is, you don't have to do anything. If you're making an earnings trade a week before earnings, you're basically putting your money there, and it's doing zip wada for a full week. So you might as well just wait and see really what the market is pricing it right until the very last minute, if that's something that you're interested in doing. So, that was the stuff also. And finally, just how we've had huge volatility premium in VIX futures. And this rally in cash absorbed almost all of the premium. It got right back to normal levels. So I think the market has been waiting for a sell-off. We got a 1% sell-off because Icahn dumped his Apple stock. So I don't know if it's a little bit closer tied to Bank of Japan, and maybe they're ending their stimulus efforts. So our big question at the end of the day is, do we go in and make this vol sale and, scoop up some XIV and stuff like that? Or do we hold on and see if there's any follow through tomorrow? So that's kind of where we left at. Funny enough, at the end of our last chat, when the Options Insider Radio came beckoning at 5 to 4.
We are demanding here on the Options Insider Radio Network. Drop what you're doing. It's time to do some radio. But you're right, it was kind of a bit of a two narratives, maybe even three if you work in, of course, you mentioned from a vol perspective, it was one narrative, but two narratives from a performance perspective this week. You had Facebook kind of blowing the doors off of it, coming close to, I think, 1 billion mobile users, something crazy. 1/7 of the planet using that platform, which is kind of just mind-numbing when you think about something like that, and mind-boggling. Then you had Twitter, on the other hand, getting just destroyed yet again. I think they're in the 14 handle right now. Let's pull them. Yeah, about 14.5 or so out there in Twitter land, just having been crushed. And of course, you mentioned Apple. Can't go a day on the show without mentioning Apple here. Also getting a crushed, technical term out there, about off another 3 handles, about 3% today. You mentioned the news of Carl Icahn. You're right. It is kind of a surprising about face. All of us here on the show always kind of took his support with a grain of salt. I think the Apple folks did as well, because he was a bit of an agitator for some change there, but also he was one of their big cheerleaders. And from a stock value and a PR perspective, that was kind of nice to have someone out there kind of blowing your skirts up all the time, how great your stock is, going to be the first $1 trillion company, et cetera, et cetera. So him bailing is a PR disaster more than anything else. Doesn't really say much about the valuation. You either believe it or you don't at these levels. But yeah, his bailing certainly doesn't help. Kind of a bit of a capper to what was a underwhelming week, I think, to say the least. out there in Apple land, closing today south of $95, 94.81. This is another one talking about your underperforming from an earnings volatility earnings straddle perspective, Andrew. They were pricing in about a 4.5% to 5% move going into earnings. They closed right around 104.35, and again just got crushed after hours, off about 8.35 or about over 8%. It got higher than that. That's where that's from close to open. The other after hours move and everything else was actually a little bit more exacerbated than that. And of course, a lot of that coming on weakness in China and just weakness, first time down quarter for iPhone sales, first time for revenue. So it wasn't exactly a banner time for them. I don't know, Barry, this must actually also be concerning for someone like you, because for a long time, particularly the last couple of years, when the overall options industry was stagnant or maybe down a little bit or up a little bit, names like Apple were kind of the bellwethers that a lot of the brokers relied on. I mean, you could probably count on any given day, Apple's probably in the top 5 for you guys over there in terms of volume. So I'm sure maybe behind the scenes, you're probably secretly rooting for Apple to keep rolling because they do drive so much business across the entire brokerage industry these days.
Yeah, it's a good point. There's no doubt Apple's been one of those highly concentrated positions, probably for many different firms. But, as we know, times change and positions change, and, it's different with ETFs and with indexes, and now, self-directed traders have more options than ever. They don't necessarily need to, one of the biggest things I get concerned about is people don't have to necessarily do it all themselves. There's other competitors out there where they can, build motifs or build portfolios, or, at Schwab we do have robo-investors, which is great with Schwab Intelligent Portfolios. So for some of those self-directed traders who said, you know what, I was focused on Apple, now I don't know what Apple's going to be, and I don't know what that go-to underlying should be. There's other ways for clients to trade. For me, who runs OptionsXpress with a great team here, we want people to think of more ideas. And as I said earlier, idea generation, because of situations like Apple, are more important than ever, right? We need to educate folks on other areas of the market, not just from a diversification standpoint, but the fact that, the mighty can fall. And, I haven't looked at the Dow 30 recently, but obviously there's changes always in the Dow 30. And Apple, one of these days, may not be there. You just don't know. I don't know about whether Facebook is the new Apple. I'm not here to necessarily say what the thesis is on that, but we've seen this story with Apple before, right? If you look back, I still remember owning Apple in the 90s. I think at like 50 or 45, and held that on, and it's been a really fun run, obviously. But could it actually go back down to those days? If their numbers continue to dip, who knows? But clients have to absolutely continually research, get educated, look for new opportunities, understand the strategies to maximize those opportunities. And, firms like OptionsXpress and others are, that's a big part of our responsibility to try to help our clients find new underlyings, find new opportunities, especially when the ones like Apple don't always look as stable as perhaps they used to.
Yeah, we knew here on this program that the worm had turned on Apple when good old Uncle Mike Tusaw, who was always our Apple cheerleader here on the program, when even he bailed on the stock a while back.
No way.
Yeah,
Mike bailed on
Apple. I think it was around, refresh my memory, Andrew, it was around like the 120-something level. That's when he finally washed his hands of it, or was it higher? I forget.
Right around there.
Yeah, so he actually picked a pretty good level. Kudos to him. But yeah, when he turned on it, we knew, Barry, that the worm had indeed turned, because he was always arguing with us for years here on the program that we were always the cynics about Apple, and it kept rallying, and Tusaw was always the cheerleader, and even he was out. Though he was saying he was maybe looking at it down at these levels again. Maybe this recent report might indeed change his mind, and once he recovers from all his immediate oral surgery, we'll get the answer from him. Speaking of answers, I'm actually glad you're on the program today, Barry, because there's an issue just came up this morning, actually. I think it might be interesting to get your thoughts on. You guys remember a few weeks back, kind of the options world a little bit shaken by the notion that Nasdaq, who already ran 3 of its own options exchanges, went out and gobbled up ISE, who also ran 3 options exchanges. Everyone was saying, what the heck are they going to do with 6 options exchanges under one umbrella? I heard some rumors, some rumblings about maybe using the securities licenses for those as well. Well, we heard more about that this morning, that is indeed their plan, that with each of those options exchanges comes also a commensurate securities exchange. exchange license, and then maybe start using those to actually launch some dedicated ETF trading exchanges, which is a kind of an interesting idea. We all saw how much tumult there was in the ETF space, certainly post August 24th of last year, where a lot of those big levered ETFs really just became unhinged for the better part of that day, off 30%, and a lot of problems in that area. We've seen a lot of shakeup there. Who knows, maybe a dedicated exchange, some of these products might be an interesting way to solve it. So that's kind of an interesting issue on a couple of layers there, Barry. One, of course, the notion of some sort of dedicated ETF exchange is interesting, but also I'm more curious for you. It's an issue we talked about a lot here on this program, the continued proliferation of options trading venues out there. We're up to 14, I believe now, unless Nasdaq shuts some of these other ones down. So, I mean, I'm curious to you. You interact with the retail on a daily basis. Is this an issue that they're starting to mention to you and saying, hey, for you guys in particular as a broker, the issue comes down to, hey, I have a spread I want to trade. It's on spread book on X exchange, but it's MBBO says it's bid here, and getting things filled away. I know that's a huge challenge for you guys. So I'm curious your own personal views on this continued proliferation of options exchanges out there. Good for the business, bad for the business. And then if you're curious about the potential of an ETF exchange, you can feel free to have that one as well.
That's a great question, and admittedly, this is one that we're still looking into. And look, you're right. I mean, it seems like every week we have a new exchange. From our standpoint, my big focus is on our clients, and that's where our execution desk's focus is on the clients, ensuring that they're getting the best execution, best price improvement, and that's been a consistent, real staple at OptionsXpress for quite a long time. In my opinion, we have some of the best in the business in terms of execution desk and our routing partners as well. And so I get less concern as the alphabet soup of the exchanges grows. I get more concerned with how it's affecting our clients, and all the data that I see from our folks who run our execution desk and our partners that ensure that we're getting the best service from our vendors shows me that we're doing a hell of a job, no matter what the size quantity of the trade for our clients, and really seeing a great, consistent execution quality improve over the months, really now for the last several years. And so that's really my big concern. And as we get more into sort of the macro effect, we'll get some guidance from that group. But where I sit today, it's tough for me to really comment on. But I will say that a lot of companies out there tout their execution quality. Ours is certainly, in my opinion, some of the best out there, and we've seen some great results, and we try to constantly price improve for our clients, and we'll continue to do so. So this gets back to that, the 3 E's I mentioned before in terms of education, evaluation, and execution. From an execution standpoint, we're continuing to do a great job on behalf of our clients.
And it's time for us to keep on rolling into our next segment, one of my favorites. Hopefully it's one of yours as well out there. It's time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, that funky tune means it's time for the funky portion of the show. It's time for us to peer into the weeds and down the dark alleys of the options market and see what's hiding down there in those shadows. Barry, I know you're familiar with the show, so you can feel free to chime in on any of these names that catches your fancy as Andrew and I kind of roll through a list. And we're going to kick things off. I believe Mr. Rock Lobsters actually is a newcomer here to the old Odd Block. This is Methanex Corporation. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi film. Ticker symbol MEO, MEOH. Closing today, $35.35, a palindromic ticker. Our closing price off about 2.25%. As the name implies, this is a producer and supplier of methanol to a range of international markets. This is a name that does, about 800 contracts a day. Doing pretty decent volume for them today, doing about 3,500 contracts today. And looks like, I don't know, Mr. Rock Lobster, if you could put a theme to some of our odd blocks of late. It seems rolling up and out, up and in, as we had on last episode, which was kind of weird, but rolling seems to definitely be a theme. We got that again here in spades. In particular, what caught our eye out here was the May 35 40 vertical going up about 1,100 by 2,000 times. Looks like paper selling 35s, closing them out, taking a little bit of that house money off the table, and then reestablishing up on the 40 strike, doing it for more, doing it 2,000 times. About 2,400 contracts open on the 35 strike, only 500 on the 40, so clearly opening on the upside. And again, Mr. Rock Lobster, this is kind of indicative of what we see with a lot of these house money rolls. They're sitting on some cash, sitting on some house money, so they decide they still like the trade. They want to move it up a little bit, take some of that money off the table, then reapply it higher up. And again, doing it, if it worked for 1,000 contracts, it's got to work for 2,000, right? At least that's what the logic goes for a lot of these rolls we're seeing out here. And then looking back over the past history here for good old MEOH, this thing, like a lot of the energy-related names, was looking a little higher about a year ago into the 60 handle. So our friend here, if he does indeed come to pass, could be smiling yet again here as this vertical continues to pay off for him. Mr. Rock Lobster, what's your take here on this vertical here in MEOH?
I think they were taking the money and doubling down. Because we've seen so many. How many guys have we seen roll up with their money and take their money off the table and just stay in? So that's what's funny about the sell-off today. The market can sell off any day, but it's been pretty bullish rolling. So I think the funniest thing about this company, Methanex, the methane company, of course, they don't have a subsidiary in Washington, D.C., where you think the most methane would be produced of any metropolis in the country. But
you sneaking your political commentary in again, sir, here on the program.
I try to sneak it in just quietly. But it's nonpartisan. It's nonpartisan. It's hot air from everybody. But anyway, I think this trader is enjoying the ride in hot air for this methane company. So, doing okay. And I think the trade ended up being 1,000 by 2,000, and they're taking their money and trying to make a bunch more. So, I mean, the commodity from the bottom in January, I think, like commodities, gold, oil, gas, all of it is just really, no pun intended, but it's all exploded. So, and even today with the market selling off, it still held up pretty well. So if it's not the bottom of the cyclical commodity boom, I don't know what it is, but it feels like we're kind of doing the dead cat bounce. And Mr. Methanex is enjoying that ride.
Barry, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Methanex, not a top volume driver over there at OX on a daily basis. Am I correct?
You're correct. I think most people confuse that with some of those, power bars instead of, what we're talking about. So we're in the clear with that one.
All right. So I'll spare you having to comment on the vertical in Methanex, but instead, maybe this one might catch your eye. This is a little bit more liquid name. A few people have heard of a good old eBay ticker symbol, appropriately enough, eBay, EBAY, closing today about 24.62, off about 2.5%. So another aggressive down day here in good old eBay. This one that actually puts up some numbers, as you might expect, doing about 17,000, almost 18,000 contracts a day. Today, doing a whopping 52,000, about 6-to-1 calls over puts. That should tell you where we saw the activity. And I was saying earlier, thematically, the odd block seems to be all about rolls. And yet again, we are seeing some size rolling activity. This time, a bit of a weird one, Mr. Rock Lobster. From the weeklies all the way out to June, we saw the April 24 calls expiring on the 29th. So just kicking off here pretty soon. And then selling those out to buy a little bit farther out, not in the weeklies again, but instead farther out all the way to June. He bought an actually legit monthly this time. That's how confident he is, to the tune of the June 26s, doing that again 18,000 times. You saw that going up in 2 blocks over there on the Philly. Did see some stock going with this one as well. It came up marked buy right, and we did see close to 1 million shares, about 890,000 shares going up in eBay concurrent with this trade. So again, could be rolling on a bit of a delta neutral basis. We've seen a lot of price variation and buy right and other tags going up lately, Andrew, that haven't had any stock associated with them. This time we do. So that kind of changes the narrative. Also changing the narrative, perhaps, size open interest on that June 26th strike to the tune of about 43,000 contracts open. Before we break this trade down a little bit more, Andrew, I know, Barry, I'm sure eBay is one that probably does a little bit more paper over there at OX. No offense to Methanex, but not exactly a volume leader. I'm curious, have you guys seen any interesting paper or uptake in eBay, or maybe any other related names that have kind of caught your eye over the past couple of weeks there at OX?
Yeah, I'm looking at some data right now, not necessarily significantly, nothing that stands out over the last couple of weeks. There's certainly some option activity in June, but nothing that necessarily catches my eye as something that I would necessarily talk about. In terms of just derivatives or anything off of this, a lot of our eBay traders also trading Valiant. So I don't know what necessarily the connection is there, but I'm seeing a lot of people who are trading in the eBay space also trading in Valiant. Other than that, no other trade patterns really to report out from us.
That's true. I forgot about, we haven't mentioned that tool in a while. You have that great what else are they trading tool that we used to actually use a lot here on the show. We actually had a guessing game built around that on the program. I would always stump Uncle Mike and Andrew and Mark and everyone else, Alex as well, when he was on the program, because we would pull up some random name and we'd find what else the OX clientele was trading. I often found that to be a very interesting and telling things. I'm actually glad you mentioned that to me. It reminded me of that tool. I might have to start playing around with that again.
And I think you're really describing it well. It's interesting, in all full disclosure, you're not exactly sure what to go with. It's just another data point that helps you think about your potential trades. I mean, if I'm looking at the trade pattern on eBay, I'm seeing companies like Macy's, Valiant. Let's see what else comes up. Some of these. PayPal comes up. So not necessarily sure of the connection between the two, but that's just some of the activity that we're seeing with our clients.
Mr. Rock Lobster.
Maybe they're I'm just looking at it. They're scooping maybe some value, value companies or companies that haven't, Macy's sold off. Maybe people are looking for kind of the deep value play. I mean, eBay hasn't moved more than $4 in a year since they spun PayPal off. So that's why I don't get why this person, they buy 18,000 calls and then they sell delta neutral against the 26s. I mean, unless they think eBay is going to move when it hasn't in a year, maybe it's due. I don't know, but this trade I did not get at all, and it just kind of reminded me of what was the Men's Warehouse backspread where you and I were laughing. The guy made like $10 million on it.
Yeah, he laughed all the way to the bank in our faces on that one. We mocked, he collected.
We mocked him. That's what the eBay feels like. Okay, you're going to backspread eBay. Where is it going? But if it's up $20 tomorrow, I'll be like, oh, man. How do they know? Yeah,
these ones that we mock here on the show, Barry, sometimes have a tendency to get in our face. It's like, on the craps table, someone playing an extraordinarily low percentage, low probability bet, and yet it somehow plays in their favor, and we end up looking silly here in the program. That's the danger. That's the danger we run doing a live show like this. One more here in the odd block, then we'll see if we can get some of your questions. People are already tweeting in. Surprisingly, talk about Apple, people get riled up, so we'll get to some of that in a little bit. But before we do that, let's finish up here with a name we've talked about actually a lot lately, Mr. Rocklop. Seems like they're back on our radar quite a bit, which is good old KKR. These guys have been around since the old corporate raider days. And now, of course, ticker symbol, appropriately enough, KKR closing about tick under $14 or so today. This name does about 3,000 contracts a day, doing about 8,000, so decent paper for them, about 6-1. Calls leading the charge over puts. This one a little bit more straightforward, Mr. Rock Lobster here. No crazy delta neutral rolls or up and ins or anything like that we've been talking about on some of the last shows. Just a good old-fashioned, actually it's kind of refreshing, good old-fashioned call buy to the tune of the June 15s this time. Paper gobbling up about nearly 6,000 of these bad boys, doing them for 40 cents. A bit of an aggressive print because they went out 20 at 30, so they're already a dime in his face. I'm sure he's not too happy about that. About 4,000 opens. This is clearly opening paper here, and looking back at the year that was for KKR, they were also substantially higher about into the end of last summer as well. Almost 2x where they are now. Our friend here clearly feeling that there is some love. Again, size open interest there. Also, tons of open interest on the June 17s here. So it could be perhaps he's also adding on to a previous position. Where do you fall on this one? Obviously, we got to wait till tomorrow to know for sure, Mr. Rock Lobster. But where do you fall on this one? Opening, new, what's your feel?
It was looking just the way it was printed. It looked like opening paper. And I've seen a lot because we profile, I think, Carlyle Group and Blackstone the last month. For whatever reason, people are buying calls, near the money calls, and all of these private equity funds and buyout specialists and stuff like that. I don't know if it's because maybe credit's going to loosen or interest rates are going to stay low for a while. I don't quite know why, but I haven't seen the move come out of the stocks yet. So, but there has been, pretty good call buying. Those stocks kind of don't do anything till they do something. And so surprising call buying. That's all I'll say on those. But it's a little bit more bottom fishing activity in stocks where the S&P 500 is near all-time highs, but these stocks are still near the lows. So somehow money finds those stocks.
Money finds a way. It's like Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. In this case, money finds a way. And your listener questions somehow find a way to us as well. So let's keep on rolling into those. It's time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, like the man said, this is the mail block, the portion of the show where you guys get to take the reins with your questions, your comments, your insights, your pearls of wisdom. Hit us up. No shortage of ways to do just that. The website, pretty much everything's there. You can comments, website form. Also, the old-fashioned way, email, questions@theoptionsinsider.com or via all of the social media, twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, stock twits where Options Insider, or a lot of you over there in the chat room can beam in live as well, or just hit us up. It's all there in the mobile app as well. And, of course, we were talking about Apple earlier, gentlemen. That always tends to get some response. We got some of the live responders coming in. Someone saying here, this is S. Pakal writing, hey, Apple could hit 120 before September 2016. Hashtag Carl told he could, a little bit of a typo here, told he could buy back some stock soon. Apple buyback starting tomorrow, pushing the stock to 100. So there you go, Barry and Andrew. The zealots, the Apple Defense Force already coming to their aid here. That's what happens whenever we mention Apple on this show, Barry. Certainly in any sort of derogatory way, the people do come out with their pitchforks and their torches to roast it. This is actually a little bit more subdued than some of the others we received complaining about our lack of Apple love. Let's move on to some other ones coming in. You guys write in from all different platforms. This one comes from Mohammed. Actually, this gets to what we were talking about before, Andrew. He writes, hey, hi, Mark. The Options Insider website is a superb resource for new and experienced options traders. Well, thank you very much. Flattery will get you everywhere. He goes on to write, hey, I know your weekly newsletter, you folks report in your weekly newsletter, and more typos here, you report significant / unusual volume done options trading activity. Of course, maybe English is not his first language, across stocks and ETFs. After searching on your site and overall online, I find it quite difficult to locate a website which details some of the terminology used when describing the large blocks traded. He puts in parentheses here, for example, price variation. If you could compile a glossary or an overview of how to view or assess options order flow, that would be excellent. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Mohammed. Well, Mohammed, you are in luck. We have done exactly that. Probably the easiest way, actually, if you like listening to this show, go find our other program on our network, our educational program, Options Bootcamp. Just search for episode 56. You can find it on our website or in iTunes, or just search for Trade Tags Demystified. Guess what that episode's all about? Exactly what you're talking about. We break down all of those trade tags like price variation and everything else like that. In fact, the Rock Lobster guested on that show with me to get into all of the nitty-gritty price variation, what all these different trade tags actually mean. If you want to just read it all for yourself, we actually have a great two-parter. Again, the Rock Lobster contributing this one. It's over there on the website as well. Just go to theoptionsinsider.com and type trade tags into the search bar. It's the easiest way to find it. You'll come up with a big two-parter. We explain all of that stuff, price variation, everything else up there. I don't know, Mr. Rock Lobster, we touched on this before, but probably good to have a refresher for the people. Anything you want to add here about the ever-popular, ever-mystifying topic of trade tags?
They are mystifying. They are mystifying, and the funny thing is they're never quite always go up, right? Like, so price variation usually is saying, okay, there could be different prices with the print, but also tied usually to some kind of stock to allow the print to go up. And a lot of times I have a hard time finding where the stock is, or so there's something somehow that goes on when the tags go up. So, while they do go up, usually the most reliable ones are spread, or sometimes spreads will go up, as in I'm going to buy calls, spread goes up, you don't see any other size order that goes with the call side, but then all of a sudden you see a block of stock. So mostly they're trying to let you know that the option print you see is tied to something else. And when that happens, that's kind of a size priority thing, where you might not get your 5 lot because, 10,000 print or something like that. So I think those go up, and it's helpful that way. Other than that, they don't do a whole lot else, but just kind of let people know that, big stuff is trading, and it's usually tied to something else. So that, if there was, you have to take one quick overview from that would be it.
Let's see. Oh, actually, we're getting who's chiming in there? I think that's good old Henry, and he's in the chat room listening there, Rock Lobster, and he knows a thing or two. Henry Schwartz, a founder of Trade Alert on our Trading Tech Talk program. He's chiming in. He knows a thing or two about trade tags, too. He writes in to add, hey, also, there's only one letter for condition code, meaning tied and late can't show up at the same time, and they usually give late the priority. So there you go, Henry chiming in. I love our live listeners. They always have some great nuggets, including some of our co-hosts lurking in the live audience as well to chime in. Barry, I'll spare you on those. Actually, we got a bunch of questions that are up your alley about wanting to know about options day trading. I think we're running up against it, so I think we'll have to pick the shorter of these. This is a very succinct one here from Maha. He or she writes, hey, how difficult is it to become a successful options day trader? Barry, this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, with a lot of your retail audience is really very short-term, short duration in nature. So I'm curious, maybe if you could speak to this for Maha as well as some of our listeners out there who are maybe interested. Maybe they're coming from stocks, they're coming from futures, other Delta One products. They want to try to apply that shorter term mindset to options. You've obviously seen a lot of these traders come in, be successful, some not so much over there at OX. So if you have any advice or something you want to pass on to our listener here, now's the time, sir. The floor is yours.
Yeah, look, I'll just tell you what my dad told me after years of trading at the Merc. You just have to have a plan, and you have to stick with what you know and not go beyond that plan. That takes discipline. So big analogy a lot of people use is Texas Hold'em. People don't want to use a gambling analogy with options, and I would take it beyond just the simple gambling standpoint, but with Texas Hold'em, you got to be patient. With options, you have to be patient, and day traders sometimes aren't, and they blow themselves up, and we see that, unfortunately, sometimes too often. Ways against that is actually having a trading plan, sticking with what you know. Start small, start with easy option concepts, don't go too complex too quickly. And whether it's OptionsXpress or any other firm, or whether you are on the Options Insider or OIC or what have you, there's great education out there. Learn the strategies and then do some research. Stick with an underlying that you know or something that you believe in, whether it's Apple or Facebook or the others that we've been talking about, and start small and stick with that, and don't go beyond your means and have a trading plan. I cannot stress that enough. And could the trading plan mean that you're trading more often each day? It could, as long as it's small within your parameters and your risk. And, to me, staying patient with that plan and not going beyond it is the key. And if you can do that, could you be successful? I think you have a better chance than not. So those would be my comments and my approach to it.
Thank you. So a lot of people think, brokers want you to come in and just churn and burn, but no, they want you to stay around for the long term and consistently and profitably trade over time. So they have a very much a vested interest in seeing you guys trade the proper way. And again, if that's a little bit longer term, so be it. That's pretty much the appropriate way for you. And speaking for us, we're coming up against it, so it's time for a very quick around the block segment.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, let's check back in one final time with the big names reporting here after hours. LinkedIn still up about 8.25 or so after hours, or nearly 7%. Amazon leading the charge, up 73 or a little over 12% right now, hovering right around 675. So both of those really rocking and rolling here in the after hours. We'll see where they move tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, the earnings parade continues. SIBO, actually in our neck of the woods here in the options realm, reporting tomorrow before the bell. So hopefully you put on all your trades already on that one. Some other names, AMC and Exxon, kind of the big names have come out already for this week. Anything else you're keeping an eye on for the rest of this week, Barry, going into the weekend here?
It's just been a really busy time for earnings, and looking forward to getting out of earnings seasons to somewhat. But no, again, we're going to consistently work on great tools, and looking forward to rolling out more features and capabilities for our clients, and we're going to continue to strive for that. But I would also look for more bigger events to come down the pipeline for our clients, both at Schwab and OptionsXpress, to learn more about what we're doing, and we'll have more to discuss in the coming weeks.
I'm surprised to hear you say you're kind of burned out at earnings season because that's a hot time for you. But I can also see how that would be a very busy time for you as well. So a little bit of a catch-22 there.
It is a catch-22, yes.
It's like expiration coming every Friday now. It's really changed the game in the brokerage space. And maybe now with the Wednesday weeklies and perhaps impending dailies coming down the road, I certainly don't envy you guys having to deal with all of this. We just talk about it. You guys actually have to handle the trades, which is no fun sometimes when these things go kind of crazy. Speaking of crazy, Mr. Rock Lobster, what are you watching for the rest of this week into the weekend?
Yeah, it's much easier to talk about it and actually have to make those guys go out and have to make all that stuff work.
Exactly.
I want my fill. So anyway, as the ex-market maker who probably used to not make it super easy to get fills, you know what? I just want to see if this Icahn crash, which will be my blog tonight, is it for real? Is he going to tell everybody he's selling his Netflix too? Maybe that will be the next thing he decides to dump, as he rode the techs to astronomical highs lately. So I don't know. I think that, and there's always this central bank easing flim-flammery that kind of always gets me nervous that the market decides one day that negative interest rates in QE forever maybe not be the best thing. So that always is in the back of my head. But I feel like we do a little bit of a bounce tomorrow when everybody realizes Icahn selling his Apple might not be the worst thing in the world, but I think investors have already sold it down, $35 from the top anyway. So they all hit the road already. So those are really, as far as this week, it feels like that's kind of how the week feels like it might end with a whimper, but we'll see if there's actually real follow through to that end of the day sell off today. But my gut says no, but there you have it.
And of course, you heard our listeners have already told us, Andrew, that the buyback's already in. It's going to 120. So if you're concerned about that, don't worry. Our listeners have confirmed Apple back above 120 very soon, by September of 2016 even. So there you go. That music means it's time to bring to a close this extended episode of the Option Block. It ran a little long. That always happens when we have a great guest. So one last time before we go really quickly, Barry, you already kind of mentioned a lot of the cool stuff you guys have going on over there, the Idea Hub, the trade comparison tools, all the other cool stuff you're working on. Any other hints, any other teases for things coming down the pike from the land of OX? Really quickly, sir, have at it.
Well, like I said earlier, what I think the puck is headed is, web and mobile. That's where we see, certainly the great opportunities down the road. It is going to become a mobile society. So, what we're trying to continually do is make it consistent and simple for our clients. But, look for more things on mobile. Certainly, it's an area that we're focused on, and it's important, and we feel that our clients really appreciate. So, it's been great to be on this program. I look forward to coming on again. I really appreciate you guys having me. Thanks, Mark.
Well, it was really fun to have you on, and it was also kind of fun to have you on, Mr. Rock Lobster. So before we go, what's cooking in the land of the pit for our listening audience, sir?
Long-term trading and portfolio management next. Saturday. Our Saturday webinar, those classes are popular. Well, they've become extremely popular for us, which is good, and teach you how to trade and actually manage puts, calls, and all that kind of stuff that you can go execute there on the OX platform. And we show you how to do it for happiness in investing. That's what we do.
Happiness in investing. I like it. All right. And on behalf of the Rock Lobster and Barry and Uncle Mike, who could not be here, and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there in the listening audience for downloading, streaming, subscribing to the show, and of course for sending in such great questions across all of these different platforms. It's hard to keep up with you guys sometimes, but we love it. Keep sending them in every way. We'll filter them. We'll get to them. Don't worry. And we'll see you next time for more of the Option Block.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.